Welcome to the show, everyone. If you're here on YouTube, hi, I'm JJ. This is my show, which means I'm going to talk. If you are intrigued by the title today, please stick around for an amazing story and inspirational embodiment of what healing is. I'm excited to bring to you Jane Jaber today. Now, you've heard me talk about Jane on the show. I did a whole solo podcast talking about Jane's story and sharing it. But for those of you that haven't been listening, so if you're on the podcast, no, we did an interview on YouTube. So come on over and meet Jane, jjflizanes.tv. I'm looking forward to Jane sharing her story. Now, she's been on the podcast once before as she was part of the Rewire beta group. And so she was on for that. And then I've mentioned her story several times based on some of the results that she got from that. So you're going to meet her today. You're going to love her today. You're going to be inspired by her today. And I can't wait for her to share her story. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. Okay, we're going to start at the beginning. So let's start with when you found me, what you're looking for, why you signed up, and then we're going to go from there.
Okay. I found you via Dr. Nasha Winters. She linked you on social media, and I, did not work with her directly, but she was my neighbor, so I knew her more in a social setting, and ended up getting diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017 and followed her metabolic approach protocol. And so I was curious in, things she shared. So she linked you in a social media post, and that's how I found you. And last spring, I was noticing how grumpy I was and how I was so frustrated with just the world and my aspects of my life and aspects of my relationship. And there was a massive blowout in my house. It's just me and my husband. My kids are both grown. And in the morning, I opened my email, and the first thing I saw was an email from you that said, "Does your partner trigger you?" So there was my first oh. And I listened to the podcast, and you talked about the Rewire, and one thing led to another. And I spent, 5 months doing that work, which really catapulted my healing journey. I learned so much about myself and my emotions. And prior to working with you, I was really hooked into the physical aspects of healing, because aside from having tumors removed, I didn't do any other traditional protocol. I'm a root cause girl. And so I was doing all the things, all the physical things. And, I've said this before, and when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think the biggest hurdle and the most productive and healing hurdle on the journey is the emotional one. And here we are.
Here we are. So let me flesh out the first sign of that you're on to something, because you did come in very physically focused, which we all are, and there's a part of us that wants to be. We're not trying to, not deal with the physical body, from supplements to the foods that we eat to detoxing. We are exercise, we're physical beings, we need the physicality. And most of us don't really trust the emotional piece. And we think, oh, that's too fluffy and it can't be that simple. What do you mean feel good? And I know, you were giving me the science of all the physical aspects, because that is how you were trained, and that's how most of us are trained. And And I think it's also because it's something tangible that we think we can control, right? We see it, we understand it, we think we can prove it over and over again, even though that every study is always funded by and has the point of view of whatever it is you're looking for most of the time, right? So every diet, every way of eating, every physical, way of dealing with things, for the most part, I mean, there are new sciences that are new studies that people are doing, but I'm still going to say that if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And depending on whatever point of view somebody has, you're going to support it through the data that you attract, the people that you attract to support your theory or belief in this physical thing. So without being, I don't know, I shouldn't say without being, I should ask you that question actually, because I know I was trying to get you back to the emotional piece. And I had told you to listen to the episode that I did with Dr. Bruce Lipton, the first one on biology of belief. And you had heard him before, but it was sort of then that it started to click, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was. And it was like the last 5 minutes of the podcast because, um, you know, just the whole, your thoughts become things, and just having that aha moment of him saying, well, um, what do people do when they realize, oh my gosh, what did I do? Did I give myself cancer? I just gave myself cancer. And then we say to you, he's kind of quirky the way he talks. And then we say to you, no, knowledge is power. You didn't know, so there's no blame. So that was my first layer of realizing that I could let myself off the hook, that whatever happened and however it happened, I had no idea what I was obviously doing, and that I just had this overwhelming sense of relief that I could let myself off the hook. But then in having that realization that thoughts become things, I started to well, it was another piece of the emotional chart of the spiral of the high vibe emotions and the low vibe emotions, and then just reflecting on the timing, the year or two before I was diagnosed, and where I was in my life with relationships outside of my marriage and family that were very painful, and, everything envy, jealousy, frustration, it was that those were massive feelings that I was stuck in for a long time, over a year.
Well, but I think you started to look at that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the first opening was Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Mm-hmm.
The second was the conversation you and I had about, and I'll share it today. I haven't shared it yet because I knew if I said it, people would be triggered. But I said it to you, and I
Oh,
didn't say it to you. I was just sharing the story. So I was interviewed on Dr. Mindy Pell's podcast like over a year ago, probably a year and a half ago. And we were talking about the emotions, and I got into a rhythm. This is why I edit my own show, everybody. Okay. I edit my own show because an editor doesn't know what to pull out. I'm not looking at necessarily. I'm looking for accurate information, or JJ being in such a flow that talking to one person, knowing that person agrees, forgetting there's an audience of people who are not going to agree or no. So Jane and I had just happened. So it must have been last year because it had just happened. And I was in flow with Dr. Mindy about emotions. And then I said, and again, remember everybody, I'm preparing you for this to not to be so shocked that you're going to hate me, but I feel like I need to say it now to you guys. I've prepared you enough because I said it to Jane, and without telling it to Jane like I was saying it to her, but just sharing the story as a observer, it's what I believe you reacted to that caused you to look when you were in the bathtub at that feelings list and really analyze and really take an account of how many years you spent in an emotion. So what I said was, here it goes. I'm not saying don't take this personally. If you take this personally, then I'm triggering something that's real for you. So call me. Like you need help. All right. So what I said in Dr. Mindy's, about emotions and oxytocin and metaphysics and quantum physics, and okay, what I said was happy people don't get cancer.
Right.
And again, it was like leading up to. I said that, and then after it was over, she did not react negatively to that. We kept the conversation going. It literally just came out of my mouth, and then I sat with it and I went, "Holy shit, they're not going to hear that the way that I mean that, and people are going to hate me." So I asked her to take it out because I thought they don't know me. They don't know me. They don't know where my heart's coming from. They don't know my Sag, and Jane is a triple Sag also, by the way. Right? Aren't you a triple Sag? Or you're
Double.
Sag moon and a Sag rising. You're a double.
Yeah.
I feel like you have another fire. But anyway, so I said it to Jane in passing, and then she kind of, I believe it triggered you, or
Right.
you internalized it, but that internalization. So that's why I'm saying it now to you guys that are listening to this, because I've decided in this red hot moment that we're calling this episode catapulting the healing journey. because right, because prior to me, Jane was very busy doing all the things, right? You changed your whole diet, you changed your whole life around. You deserve a medal for how much you changed your life, right? Like you did the work, you did the physical work. And so people will come to the table and say, "Oh yeah, I've done all that. Check, 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 check. I've done the diet, I've done the supplements, I've done the tests, I've done the lifestyle, I've done the water, I've done this." Like really, like the list of things could be a million pages long. You've done all that. And I know that you said to somebody else who does listen to the show, "Hey Mary," now you said to her when you met with her, you said, "I thought I was doing the work until I met JJ." And then I'm like, "Oh no, this is the work."
Right.
Because of the impact that the energy of your emotions has on you, that no matter what you're doing physically, the physical cannot make up for the emotional. The emotional can make up for the physical. You can have a happy body and have bad things coming into the body. And if you're in a frequency that is not in alignment with those bad things have less of an effect on you. So the emotional can make up for the physical, but the physical cannot make up for a negatively charged physical body. So I said that to you. You listened. Then what happened after you heard it? That went like talk because I never asked you this. So tell me the story of like after we got off that session, what happened?
Well, I thankfully feel like I have enough, understanding of things, and that I definitely felt like this trigger, but I wasn't like, what the hell? She's crazy. I kind of had like a moment, like, what? But fortunately, it just made me curious. And so, that's when, I'm like in the tub being curious about, hmm, what, then that's when I kind of started tracing back to the time prior to the diagnosis and going, bingo, yeah, you were pretty miserable actually. And, it was two separate relationships, and it was with female close women that were both like my sisters. And it was sort of like just the dissolving or restructuring, I guess, of those relationships. And that had never happened to me in my life. And it was super painful, super painful. So, yeah, um, that was a piece that really started to kind of create sort of the crack. And then
So let
JJ
and then I took that crack and went, "Let's
like we
break it
need to
open."
we need to crack that wide open. There's a sliver, but we need to bust that open. Yeah.
So the physical proof of the effect of this aha moment was that prior to this, Jane's doctor had been trying to get her A1C, her blood sugar levels down, right?
Mhm.
And they weren't in a terrible zone, but but you were,
It was
they could.
5.8, which is, in their measure, not optimal. And in standard of care, it's 1 point away from the pre-diabetic window. But for them, they're very, it was like, ooh, that's a little high. And, you know, I was a freak about my meter and my glucose and my monitor, and I wore a continuous for a couple months, and it was all about like what I was putting in my mouth. And Stacy, my naturopath, would be like, well, it's not only about what you eat. And so I see her twice a year, and I saw her in January of that year. I started working with you in May, saw her again in August, and I sat down in her office, and she said, okay, what did you change? Said, I haven't changed anything. I just started working with a coach around my emotions. And she's like, yeah, your A1C is 5.4. And we have a functional nutritional coach in our group. And she was like, that's really hard to do in that 6-month period, to drop your A1C 4 points. So, and for me, that as much as I have trust in the things that we can't really explain and see, it's always nice to get that little hit of, you know, validation that you're on the right track through other means.
Well, you were using the monitor. So, and it wouldn't budge and it wouldn't budge. And you were like complaining that you had tried everything from supplements to fasting to diet change to exercise. It wasn't budging. And it was after you had the breakdown in the tub, realizing that, oh, I wasn't happy. I was actually really sad and frustrated and jealous and all the things, right? When you had that breakdown, you said the next morning or after the tub, you got up and it was already lower.
Yeah.
So it was the first time you had seen a shift in your blood sugar after you trying physical things for a long time, which is a
Yeah.
pretty amazing story. And I know you and your physician talked about sort of the emotional impact of healing,
Mhm.
emotional impact on the physical healing and being able to see that. So yeah,
Well,
the data, and I know most of them want the data, which I get, and I'm not, I, I would probably be a lot more successful if I was someone willing to collect the data, but that is not me. That's why every time I thank Dr. Kelly Turner and anyone doing this work, to track it, it's none of it's news or, Dr. Bruce Lipton biology belief. It's that intuitive piece that I'm like, I don't need it, but I understand the rest of the world does. So maybe one day a team of people can come together and help me track this data. You're the first, Jane, of the emotional impact on your physical symptoms and physical body. So,
well, I remember too, when I first got diagnosed, she questioned me a lot about my, state of mind, and that she finds in, particularly in breast cancer, that there is a lot of emotional components. But I was just like, I'm cool.
right. Well, that's what
Do
most
all
people
the
say.
things, I'm like yeah, yeah, yeah. So
So, okay. So Jane now has this epiphany. Oh my gosh, I'm not cool. No, I'm kidding. I am cool, just in a different way. Uh, like, holy shit. And we finish our 5-month program. You sign up for the mastermind. But in the meantime, you're thinking, I want to continue to get to the root of this. So Jane has recently done her VIP day, which was her plant medicine journey. And so for those of you that have been listening for a while, people have asked me about it. Uh, when we did the sacred shamanic journey with Christian, and San Pedro is a very nice plant. I like it. It was good. And I will do it sometime again in the future. Not anytime soon. But psilocybin, that's the truth teller. That's the truth teller. That's the dissolving of the illusion. That is the surrendering. It's a surrender. It's a surrender to forget what you think going in. I remember when in Jane's beta group, I had done, because I had been testing out dosages for people that were coming, and I wanted to make sure that I had done what anybody else has done. So just to see physical, like what happens. And actually, I haven't done what Jane's done, but I wasn't afraid to do what we did. And I'll explain why, and Jane will explain why. Uh, I was testing out a dosage for somebody coming, and I thought, oh, I haven't done that yet. Let me do that. And it opened up me to pains and angers and sadness that I was holding on to, like consciously holding on to. And I remember not giving myself enough time to sort of let that out. Like I kind of broke open, was like, oh my God, I have to go back in. So you've heard me talk about the story because then I did a higher dosage before going to the San Pedro event to say, okay, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to let my body, I'm going to like bring more of that pain up. Then I came out of that going, oh, because that was a portal. That next dose, which was less than Jane did, it was a portal literally to non-physical, like crazy non-physical crossing over stuff kind of happened. Okay. But I came out of that and Marco'd their group and I laughed. I'm crying. Like my face is, I have had a box of Kleenex. I'm sweaty. I'm gross. And I laugh because I'm like, well, the joke is that you think you're going to tell the mushrooms what to do or like where you want to focus. And they're like, nope, that's not what's in the cards for you today. So it's like a complete surrender about what it is that you need to learn. And if you're willing to take the lesson, you know, people have heard and get afraid of this because they've heard people have bad trips. I don't believe in a bad trip. I believe in everything has the lesson. Like if you're in a situation where you're with other people and you're influenced by other people and that disturbs you or irritates you, that wasn't bad. It was just it was just probably information to not, which is why I'm up until now, Jane and I have been discussing something we'll share with you, but up until now have only wanted to do it one-on-one because I don't want you influenced by anybody else's, whatever anybody else is doing. And I want you to have the full experience of going in, surrendering in complete, like controlled environment where you're, you know, there's nothing you need to worry about. Like I just did something and nobody was home. And I thought, well, I learned that was dumb to do by myself without anybody else here because I had to worry about the cats and I was in a different place and I didn't honor the situation. I didn't do it ritualistically like I had done before. So I did it one time like that, not, and I thought, okay, I've learned my lesson. So Jane wanted to come like right away. So we did this in the beginning of February because she wanted to. So talk to everybody about what your thoughts were about doing it, why, you know, and then we'll go through what happened.
Well, it's been a curiosity for me. And, I live in Colorado and it's pretty popular. I mean, like half my town is microdosing. I mean, it's a thing. And I had done it recreationally when I was younger. But, being on this path and, wanting to move forward and working with you in the mastermind and having cancer, I just felt like this would be the step I needed to take to really gain some clarity. And we had just done Awaken Your Dream Life and worked on the whole brain living. And, my intention was thinking that I was going to come and experience that whole character for bliss state. That was like, so that almost like that, I could experience that, and that would be my awakening to, that would be my point of focus, my beam of light that would, carry me through. Oh my God. And that's not what happened.
Nope, that's not what happened. But you are so not afraid. We discussed dosage a couple times. It was intuitive. We did our ritual. I even got excited about doing an exercise with you, but we didn't get to because it kicked in too fast. And I was like, well, all right, we're out of time. It's time to go in and do your thing. And so let's talk about what happened.
Well, I met my shadow is basically what happened. And I was, now in retrospect, putting myself into the absolutely most uncomfortable situation I had ever been in. Like it when it started to really come on, I couldn't keep my mask on because I remember at one point you said, "Get back in there," and I pulled the mask down, and meaning like get back in there, get it, go inside and see what you need to see. But after a minute, I pulled it back off again, and I remember looking at you and I'm like, I don't want to go back in there. It's scary in there.
Well, the first thing you said is, I'm not like other people.
Well, because yeah, just so you know, I'm not like everyone else, because I feel that I felt in the moment like, holy cow, this is a lot. And I guess, and because it came on so quickly, I feel like my physiology probably is quite clean, and it didn't take much for things to start happening. And then when they did start happening, they were so big and so intense that I got scared. And in the moment, you don't know all this stuff. I mean, I'm still like, it's March 8th. I came to you on February 8th. We're only a month out. And even today, driving home from dance class, I had this revelation. And, you know, that's why the integration piece is so important, because when you're in it, you don't even know what you're getting in the moment. And what I was getting in the moment was a sense of not having control, and a sense of fear, and a sense of feeling like I wasn't gonna ever be the same. Like, how am I gonna get in the car and drive back to LAX tomorrow? Because I felt like I was so somewhere else that was, it was scary. And yeah.
Okay, now that you've scared everyone into not doing it, let's talk about what you learned and if you would recommend it for people. Or
Absolutely. I absolutely would never, I would, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's helpful with the integration if you have some knowledge of, yourself, and the way, the whole mind body spirit connection, and how your mind works, and how you have this ego, because that's what I was fighting. I was fighting my ego. And in retrospect, there is a part of me that wonders if, that is the human condition. You do have an ego, so you don't put your hand on a hot stove, or you don't, it is your operating system to keep you safe. And so I do question how much of that, is that innate piece, and how much of it is my programming, I did hear someone mention in a podcast I was listening to that, and this is perfect. It's like you get thrown into a spiritual washing machine. That's what it feels like. And so the fear wasn't so much like I was terrified. The fear was I had no control over the situation. So there's the nugget, right? Is my need to feel like I have some sense of control over what's happening. And the other piece of that was, that's my programming. And how much did I grip that? Like, how the clinging of that programming, which is what you have to transcend to have any kind of which I, there were glimpses of, I could sense that everything is energy. And I would have these moments where I would like relax, and then I could feel like this sense of me just melting into where I was laying, like you're gonna, like, okay. But then that was, I wasn't in control of that, and then I would fight it again. Um, yeah. So it was the that peaky part, and that wasn't the whole journey, um that was the peak part of the journey. And then as that started to subside, then I was shown, I've had very intuitive people. On a retreat, I had a very intuitive massage therapist tell me that I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders, and when am I going to put that shit down? And I had some moments of that, those feelings of all the grief we carry, all the, I cried for my mom, and her life and her inability to express her authenticity, and I cried for myself. And I will tell everyone, till my dying day, I had what I considered a very functional, normal childhood. But as I've learned in working with you, you don't get out of it unscathed, because your parents have their shit too, regardless of how great you saw them as parents. They hand you stuff. And, for a minute, I was like soothing myself as a small child, like thinking that there were times that I didn't get what I needed. And I mean, that's, I is really not any kind of massive like awakening. That's knowing that we're all spiritual, energetic beings having a human experience, and that's part of the playbook, and that's part of what you see this, it's not just it's I have so much of that from all the work I've done. And I've been really immersed in yoga and yoga philosophy for 15 years, so I have intellectualized these concepts. And then I had the opportunity to really see how it all is with me, how this all, it was just a personalized journey of all this stuff that I had in my head for 15 years. And again, the integration piece is like all my meditation practice, my any kind of reading I do, or any kind of spiritual work or exposure I have, lands so deeply for me now, because it just made everything make sense.
So if someone's listening to this and they're actively cancering, maybe for a couple of times, or maybe they're on a like pretty bad path, what would your thoughts be about doing something like this?
I think it's your I think it's your only I think you're missing out if you don't explore the possibility of having an experience like this, to really get a picture of how you unconsciously make yourself sick.
One of the things that, so for you, from my perspective, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this with people is because it's that embodiment piece. You talked about the intellectualizing. A lot of the work I'm doing with people still, there's a piece of it that is about comprehension and understanding and identification and awareness. And sometimes, especially if you're an air sign or a fire sign, because Sages and I have that Sag too, we learn, we and express emotions and we process emotions intellectually and analytically. But that doesn't mean that energy is not stored in your body. And so what to me was successful for you was the journey of when you first started, and I was looking for the notes, but they're probably in your file. Is that, you fought it. You fought it through breathing. You thought you could breathe it away. And I know because you went in thinking you were going to have this like bliss state,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure if you did it again, well, one or two more times, you would hit that. You would cross, and maybe, but maybe not, or you would at some point,
Yeah.
because it's about the clearing, right? You hold the weight of the world on your shoulders. Breast cancer, all cancers have an emotional root, and they're different emotional roots. The breast is very much about overgiving, right? Like it's and having people like suck you dry, so to speak. And there's also some mothering things, whether it be lack of mothering, or wanting children or resenting children, whatever. Anyway, there's a little bit of that piece in breast cancer too. But so they all have their own significant emotions. So there's the two pieces to me, is that there is the embodiment, the vision, the grounding that happens, the slowing down, the dissolving of the physical barrier, the dissolving of the ego, the dissolving of the ideas that you think are right, or that you think right, but you haven't actually felt. So for you, you kind of fought it in the beginning with the breathing, and then with and then as you kind of like allowed yourself to tiptoe in, and you were even surprised. I think you said something, oh, I'm so like, wow, I didn't know I had such control issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that for everybody. I mean, there are people that know they have control issues, and there are people who don't think they have control issues until you do this and you go, holy shit, I'm not willing to let go. And it's really apparent here. Like, this is the true test of how much do I surrender and how much do I trust. So one of the things that Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about all the time is the only two things that not the only two things, but the two things you have to have in order to be able to heal anything is you have to love yourself, which most people don't, and you have to trust. And if you don't trust, you're not healing. So to me, there's only while we can intellectually talk about, do things, and we can go that route, it will work. It'll just take a little bit more time to, over time, use the things that we did in the Rewire to sort of break down it. And life experiences have to shape that for you. Life experiences have to come to play so that your cellular information, that's the most important piece here. And I guess I'll announce now, even though I'm not going to open up early bird tickets yet, but because you mentioned, well, I think you might have said the word, or I said the word. Anyway, the live event that we're doing this year, everybody, is going to be called the Embodied Healing Intensive. And it's that reason, it's about the body embodiment of, and that integration piece, because as Jane was saying, intellectually, we can learn a lot of things. We can talk about a lot of things. We can understand a lot of things. But until we do something that puts us in a situation that exposes us emotionally, energetically, challenges our belief systems, changes our belief systems, challenges your trust, challenges your love of yourself, and really brings you into a deeper realization and place with that, then that's when the healing is going to be taking place. So what to me was successful was watching you kind of break down that control piece and get to the place where I'm going to use the human body like a sponge. Okay, imagine that you're a sponge, and every pain point, every disappointment, every sadness, every hurt feeling, everything from anyone in your lifetime gets collected in this sponge. And if you don't have, not you, Jane, but people who are listening, if you don't have a practice, literally, I've said this before, if you're not crying or screaming every quarter, you're emotionally constipated. because there's stuff you're holding on to that you probably haven't processed. Now, you can change your beliefs, change the way you interpret things, and things now flow and, don't affect you the same way. That's what healing does. Healing is when you're different in the same situation and you no longer are triggered and holding those emotions anymore, but there's still a flow of like emotion in, emotion out, not emotion in. And I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to hold this all in. Like that sponge is so saturated. And what I think the medicine forces you to do, or at least creates an invitation for you to take, which I hope everybody takes, is after you let go of the control, we squeeze out all that pain, and it comes through your eyes, and it comes through your mouth, and it comes through being in the fetal position and squeezing it out. Someone may look at that and think, oh my God, that sounds so scary. And I look at that and said, oh my God, that's like detoxing. That is like you haven't taken a shit in like 10 years and all of a sudden it's coming out, right? You don't want that inside of you. The
Right.
pain that you are willingly holding is hurting you.
Yes. Well, that brings up, that other revelation for me, and really having it be so clear now is, this was my, that limiting belief I had, and I said it during the journey, was like, I have this story that I need to be strong all the time. And, I have a husband and 2 kids, and my oldest is 22. And so for at least that long, I have been in that trance of thinking that as long as everybody else is okay, we're we're, we're okay. So I've been holding on to stuff for 20 years, and talk about being out of alignment with yourself. But you try to be whatever anybody else needs you to be so that they'll feel good, and then you just put it somewhere, and that's you're never gonna, I mean, maybe, I don't know, people say they have these massive shifts by doing holotropic breath work, but quite honestly, the thought of hyperventilating for 8 hours doesn't really appeal to me.
Right.
In that regard, not much of a, but I'll take the pill in that.
Right.
In that.
Right. I like the ease. I like the ease of like, let me just, I mean, because it's the ease of taking it and sort of being in a safe space. What happens next is probably not going to be ease, but it's going to, but it's going to be something that you get to surrender. You get to surrender in a different way versus you force it into, I think, right? And the physical state of the body is, I mean, half the time I got something over my eyes. I'm laying on the couch. I got the music blasting in my ears, and like I don't move, right? So I don't have to do anything. And in a world where we're so proactively overdoing, we do. It just feels nice to sort of surrender and melt. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let it melt away. Let it be shown to you. Again, in a therapeutic way. And the other piece of why I'm doing this and doing it with who I'm doing this with, like you guys, is sort of the extension of the Rewire, extension of the 6-month deep dive, extension of the empowerment strategist. It's like, okay, we've done all this understanding, we've done all this shifting in this evaluation. We understand, we feel so much better. And let's like take the layer off and see what's hiding underneath, because there's still the old stuff. New stuff doesn't penetrate as much, but there's still that subconscious body of sponge that's still holding stuff, that still hasn't released it. And I think this is, and for me, it is that integration of, for those of you that haven't, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but 9 Perfect Strangers, Stephanie Dillon told me about it. It's a show with Nicole Kidman. It's on Hulu, and it's about this retreat center, and they don't know they're being microdosed when they go, but it's so dysfunctional. Like it's so dysfunctional. And I thought, okay, well, this would never happen for me, because everybody would know me coming in, and it would be much more gentle, but it's super effective. And so if anyone's interested, I mean, What if you already seen How to Change Your Mind with Dr. Michael Pollan? That's the first place to start. If you've seen that already and you want some entertainment with a little bit of like truth telling in there, you can go to Hulu and watch Nine Perfect Strangers. It's a limited series. I think there's like 8 or 10 episodes, but the integration piece is what is to me also what you do with it. The awareness is the how do you live differently? This is not a one and done. You have an experience, and if you don't take what you've learned and change your life, then it was a nice experience. It may have shown you a few things and helped to squeeze out some of that water, but in order for it to last and have long lasting, you have to change. You have to address what came up. You have to be willing to mold yourself now in a new way, let go of some of the habits and patterns and beliefs that you've had that have created the problem in the first place, or at least the blocks. Would you agree with that, Jane?
Yeah. And for me, the whole part about the fear and the, you know, not being able to surrender, and that was essential. That is essential for change. You have to experience those levels of discomfort in order to come out different on the other side.
Definitely. Life experience. It's most of us will manifest it. Well, I think anyone that's manifested any kind of chronic illness, you've manifested it. So it's whether you want to walk through the pain of what your body is calling for you to let go of and to experience. And yeah, it's going to be scary, but it's definitely a control. And I'm not joking with when we say crack you open. Like that's not a joke. Like it's real. Do you feel cracked? Jamie was definitely cracked. She's like, I can't talk. I can't go out. I'm very raw. I can't talk to anybody. I need to process this. I'm glad my husband's not home. I'm gonna take a bath. Like you were cracked, and then you were kind of like putting it back together. Like, okay, I'm gonna just be in this. It was great. I didn't know you had that luxury of being by yourself for a couple of days when you got back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you were listing people who you wanted. You're like, oh, this person should do it, and this person should do it, and this person, like, while you were in it, you're like, this person should do this because of what you see. So what this led me to think about, and then we're going to talk about what Jane's doing in the world, because what she's going to be doing at least one time is helping me. There's a certain level of, especially if you're working with me on this, and I know Ashley addressed it. Actually, let's address that. Let's talk about that for a second, Jane. So what's the difference between you having done it by yourself or at home or coming and having me? I mean, obviously there's also the product, that's one, but anyway, let's talk about that for a second.
You mean recreationally?
No, I mean, if you,
Just having a one-on-one.
yes. Yeah, because someone might say, well, I can just take it. I can just find some and take it by myself. And
No.
let's talk about why though.
Okay. Because you need someone that has experience with the medicine to be able to be your support. I mean, like as in those moments when I was, having trouble surrendering and I would have to peak, be, I wouldn't have, I would have to peek and see that you were sitting there. I needed that sort of support because who knows, God, if I would have just like been on my own, that would, and you're in your true JJ form, we're not like rubbing my forehead saying it's going to be okay. You were like, get in there. Get back in there. So there's that, but because of your knowledge and your depth of knowledge with emotions and, knowing what we do to ourselves and how we tie ourselves in knots and having, the experience you've had with the medicine and the confidence in knowing that, I'm not going to have some kind of, psychotic break and not be the same 4 hours later, and to be able, and you did express that to me at a point when I said, how am I going to be able to, you're like, you're going to be fine, just those little reassurances. But also just, having that knowledge to know, when and where and how to support.
So if anyone comes to my live event, now I do put Kleenexes around the circles. So when people need to cry, and it's because if I start to cry, like I will be a snotty mess and I won't be able to talk. It'll be disgusting. Like, so, but what I prep everybody for, and I've talked about this after an event, it's been on the show about holding the space. When you hold the space for somebody, it means you allow them to go through what they're going through. Most people get so uncomfortable with ugly emotion that they will try to calm you down because it triggers them. It is important that you understand that wherever you are, you have to trust what's going on as part of your journey and to allow whatever to come up, whether it be screaming, crying, throwing, whatever. And someone has to be able to know how to hold the space for someone to go through the journey as whatever is like laid out, whatever it is that you need. And for me or the person not to control what's going on with you. Let's say you were hysterically crying. You weren't hysterically crying. You were crying. Gonna squeeze a little bit more out of there, but no, I'm kidding. Like, but I was like, yay. Okay, we're here. She's squeezing it out. She's squeezing it out. Someone else might have been like, oh no, it's okay. No, don't cry.
Right.
Or had you gotten nervous, someone been like, yeah, no, okay, fine, we'll stop or we'll slow down or I don't know. No, the whole crack, you open because everyone resists that. And so if you're on a healing journey and you've tried everything else and you have control issues and you're repressing your emotions and it, like, how else are you going to get them out? I'm not saying this is a guarantee of saving anyone's life. But over and over again, we've heard stories of people who, watch How to Change Your Mind. It doesn't, again, no guarantee, but I want to know, how else are you going to ever how else could we have gotten there, Jane? I mean, we couldn't have talked you through it between, like you are a very disciplined, focused person. And there was nothing you or I could have physically done necessarily to get where you got in that short period of time. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's about having an experience. It's not about thinking. It's not
Right.
about reading or learning or listening. It's about literally having a full body, every cell firing, every brain cell involved, new brain cells, right brain cells opening, left brain cells maybe kind of like quieting, and then just being put into a situation where you're free falling but you're safe. You're not actually free falling. You're free falling, but you are safe. So what's made me interested in sharing this conversation, obviously people are following the path and hearing about people's different journeys and whatnot. But I am kind of interested. So I've mentioned this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. I am interested in having a retreat center here and doing this kind of work and it not being necessarily a one-to-one. Well, it could be one-to-one. It just isn't going to be in a situation where people have privacy. So they're not overlapping their experiences and people are, being influenced by other people's, whatever, crying, screaming, right? So having them be separate enough that I kind of want to try like a beta little retreat, like have, I don't know, 5 or 6 people maybe come together. And I asked Jane if she'd be interested in helping me. And the reason I asked Jane, well, and let's go into the reason why I asked Jane, besides this experience and holding the space for it, you have to, until you understand, until you have been through it in a physical way of understanding what is needed and what is necessary. I haven't seen, although I trust you, Jane, that in a situation where someone else was having the experience you had, that you wouldn't have acted any differently than I did necessarily. But I know some people that the minute someone starts to get nervous or uncomfortable, that they have to soothe them. Now, I touched your feet at some point because I wanted to ground you. I wanted you to like take a breath. Yeah, but I wasn't necessarily hugging you, holding you, stroking your hair, telling you everything was going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because everything is going to be fine, but that's not what you need. You need to be cracked. Everyone needs to be cracked, in my opinion. So I asked Jane if she'd be interested, and she said yes. So if anyone's interested in joining this group beta retreat medicine journey with me using this specific medicine, and Jane will be helping me. That's why I don't think I can have more than like 4 or 5 people, because again, to put each person in their own separate room with their own separate music, with their own separate situation, and then to be able to check on people and to have, anyway, so I'd like to see how this works because I would love to do what 8 9 Perfect Strangers does, except here in Ojai, and have the vibe be a lot different coming in and having all of the success be as high as they had, but having the situation start off way differently. So, all right, so let's talk about Jane, and let's tell everybody what you do and what you're going to be doing. And this is part of the reason why I asked you, your personal experience, both in your own healing journey, the awakening that you had sort of in the Rewire, and then the physical evidence of that, and then coming here. What are you doing in the world, Jane? What are we working on in the mastermind?
Well, coming out of my, initial surgery and healing, I thought that my calling was to coach people on the physical. And although I do feel that there is there's importance in your physical body being, it's important to get enough sleep. It's important to, do all the things. But, you know, here we are. I am like the example that the emotional piece is really the piece you want to tackle. And that is how I'm shifting from, I have a human potential coach certificate, and I would like to bring this emotional work to people and help identify some of this stuff that is so potent on a healing journey. And yeah,
So is it janejaber.com?
it is.
So if you feel called, if you feel a resonance with Jane, maybe you have a similar life path, similar background, similar diagnosis, similar wherever you are, you're sort of on the same path, but maybe a couple steps behind her, or maybe a lot of steps behind her, but you feel a resonance with her, please reach out, janejaber.com. I'll put it in the show notes. So under this video, it'll be on YouTube. It'll be in the show notes. And Jane could possibly coach you if I'm too intense for you. Like Jane might be a gentler version of those, but she is a Sag with a Sag moon too. Um, but definitely check out Jane. She will be with me. And again, how this sort of, if you're interested in the beta group, how that will work is once we find the people, we will find the schedule. And then once we find the schedule, we will then book it because I have to find a place, and I can't do that without the people. So it has to go people first, schedule second, and then find the place third. Somewhere here in Ojai, or maybe Santa Barbara, or like just somewhere close by. I'd like it to be in Ojai, but if I can't figure that out, then we'll go as close as we can to Santa Barbara because the airport's in Santa Barbara. So let us know if you would like to be a test person. It won't be a different price than the last one, FYI. So if you already reached out with the last one, it'll be the same. Because there's a lot of things that go into, caring for somebody and giving you all that attention, especially with a very small group, like 4 or 5 people. So, and that's just an email. So reach out to me there, janejaber.com, if you would like to learn more about Jane. You'll hear more about Jane. She'll be on the show again because we have the mastermind retreat happening a month from as of the recording of this, and she'll be on that show. And then I'm sure you'll hear her later on down the line with her successes and things that she's doing to build her business this year. But I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your experience because I think that the people that need to hear this needed to hear it coming from you, not from me, because I haven't walked the same path that you walked. So I appreciate you sharing all the details, Jane.
Thank you so much, JJ.
Yeah, I look forward to having you back on the show, as well as your clients and your success stories of all the people that you're going to help also, who are ready to do healing differently. So if you want to catapult your healing journey, be in touch with Jane.